Well, this is my next project. I got a drop Octagon because I don't have one, and I thought, well, that one looks decent. I like the shape of it, like the wood. It says regulator on there with an A. Face was kind of messed up. The dial was spun around. The hands were still on it. I've taken them off. It has a pendulum. Pretty heavy duty pendulum. Nice. And has a key. I don't know if this key fits it or not, but that's what was in it. Has plain spade hands. Big ones. Let me get all, and there's the hand nut and the little dial pan screws. So this was kind of cattywampus on here. I think one side of it might be bent, maybe not. But anyway, it didn't really catch on anything right there. That's the pan, dial pan I've taken off already. Got these little clippy things to hold my glass in, so I can bend those down and take that out to clean it. The face. Is no longer attached to the pan. So we got to fix that. You see the little solder marks where it used to be attached, but it is not any longer. So we can put that back on there. And here's our movement. And it says made in Korea. It has some kind of wild spring over here on this, I guess. Keep that pushed down. It's got 3 pins on the little cam that raises the rack up. The pendulum is got the loop in it, and this thing is all bent out of shape. So it's got a suspension spring, and I don't know how to get this out. I guess this whole rod comes out.
Absolutely, I wish you would.
So we're gonna check it out and see what's going on in there. Some big round weird thing back over here. We're just gonna check this movement out and see what we see. There's a nice gong in there. It's got a nice some kind of cast metal base that the gong goes to. I don't know what it sounds like. Interesting holders for the springs. I need to wind it up so I can get it out of the case because it's up against the wood pretty tight. Let me see if the key is going to fit it. Not great. Pretty loose. Let me see if I got a key that'll fit it better than that. Because that is way loose. And took the door off. I unscrewed that screw. That one looked like a nail. And so I wrestled it out with a pair of diagonals, and it had threads on it. It was a screw that was totally flat on the top. That I don't know if they ground it off that way after they put it in or what happened. Looks like a 2 right here and an 8 on that side. I can get these outer rings to go in some. They're not wanting to go. The spring is slipping over on itself pretty well, but it's coming forward. I don't really like the way it is secured. It doesn't seem very safe, but anyway, let's lean it up and see if it's going to run any. Alright, so with it leaning forward a little bit, there's a nail in the back of the case, and it's right here behind the pendulum, so if it leans back, it hits on that. So I'm leaning it forward. I have no idea if it's level, I'm just trying it. Alright, not bad. Can't turn the hands. The hands have a slot in them. Let me put one on and see if I can get that to move. It did move. It didn't strike. It dropped one tooth. It should have gone off one time. And it's trying to run. Long's barely moving. Lean it forward to show you, and it's about trying to stop. It's not really catching on that. Alright, so we definitely have some work cut out for us. I adjusted the gong a little bit, and I bent this back some so that it wants to sit on this little platform, and the little 3 prongs are actually going in the tooth. It's probably still going to need a little more adjusting, but the gong does not move very far, so it's really quiet. When I turn this, see my verge start skipping. It goes faster and faster and faster and starts skipping. I had the gong where it would hit, but now it's not hitting. So because it barely moves, it's really quiet when it goes off, although every other clock is going off right now, so it should sound like that, but it's barely moving and barely tapping it. So we'll get a decent sound out of it when we're done. But I definitely got to adjust that escapement because it just slips right past the prongs. And see, it fell off in the front again. So those are the issues we got to work on. Make sure that this is hitting right. It's very wobbly. Probably needs a pivot or bushing or two. And I think that little round thing was my fan, my governor fan. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't, and it's in the exact same place. So anyway, lots to work on this movement. A lot. Doing a little bit of research on this Korean clock and reading up on Korea and the Korean War and how these clocks came into being. This is a relatively new website, vintageclockparts.com, December 5th, 2025. I found this article that's a complete guide and identification and repair guide. And he talked about the major Korean clock manufacturers were Korea Clock and Watch Company, KCW, and also Seiko Korea. The parent company was the Japanese Seiko, and the Seiko Korea movements were a little bit higher quality usually than other movements from Korea because of the Japanese quality control influence. After the war, 80% of the industry in Korea was in North Korea. They had really slow growth. The Korean War was 1950 to 1953. South Korea didn't really start to be growing until about 1961. So most of these movements are 60s through the 90s. The Vietnam War boosted South Korea's economy a lot. Their gross national product went up 5 times during that time. Japan's went up a lot during the Korean War because we were using Japan for the special procurement system, and they got a lot of money from us. And then Korea got a lot of money from us during the Vietnam War, so that boosted their economy, plus the fact that they went into, they really stressed education in the 60s, and 90% of their population was going to school. You know, school-age people were going to school, which was a lot for underdeveloped countries. And so yeah, they turned their economy around by really educating their people, the people wanting to be educated and taking over technology, and that came about with getting us having Hyundai, LG, and Samsung. All these started in the 50s and grew from there. But this website talks a little bit about how you can date these clocks a little bit. They may have that KCW logo on them, or they may just say Korea or made in Korea, but they probably were still from that same company, Korea Clock and Watch Company. And the early ones closely mimicked the Japanese design, and then later ones in the 70s and 80s showed more Korean innovation. Later movements, 80s and 90s, incorporated electronic components, mechanical quartz, cost-reducing strategies in the 70s and 80s, a lot of plastic parts. So if you don't have plastic parts, which this one doesn't, leads me to think it's more from the 60s. And it talks about the plates and different things like that. So it's an interesting site. I'll try to remember to add the link to it in the description of the video of this video. Alright, 5 little screws out. Very short wood screws, very big, probably number 8 or more. There's one on each corner, one in the center. Alright, and there's my movement. Spring on there for this arm. There's great big great big pins for this gong to hit. I'm wondering why it's not moving very much. And there's my fan, and it is dirty. Alright, so let's see if there's anything else on this case. Nothing on the back. Just a mounting thing. And 2 little rubber things to keep it off the wall. And pretty nice wood on here. It's got a big split in it right there, but it will help when we put some liquids to it, some feed wax. It's dry. Don't have any idea how old this is. I don't know if the movement's original or anything else. I would say the movement's original because there's only the 5 holes in the back of the case. There's a few little wormwood holes in there. Things to look for if you're looking at clocks. I found this on another one also, a Japanese Miko, I think, M-E-I-K-O. It says regulator, a little decorative thing, and then an A. But the A is backwards. Like the A, the big fat arm should be on this side and the skinny arm over there. And they've got the big fat arm over there. This is a little loose. Just a little bit of things. There's only one screw on each side of the hinge, so it's not real conducive for keeping it from getting loose and wobbling. But anyway, it's going to be a nice clock. It's probably a 31-day clock. Door hardware's had some solder to it. It's just a washer right there, and then this little shaped brass piece. But there's no taking it off with that glob of solder. Alright, you kind of have to push it that way to get the door to shut. Separated these right here, the little arms that hold this, so I wouldn't mess up my suspension spring, because I don't think I'm going to be able to find one very easily if I mess that up. This brass bushing piece on either side has a pin through it, and it does not come out. It's attached somehow. So I separated the plates so I could slip this out of there and put it somewhere safe. Then I got my key and my let-down tool on this side, and the clicks are on the opposite side. I managed to get the click out of the way. The spring will not come off the rivet right there. So there's no way to release the pressure on the spring. The end of the spring goes through the end of the click, and I'll show you the click design when I get this apart. But I managed to get the click out of the way with my little spring tool. Hold it out of the way and get this side unwound, but it's like impossible. Like, I had it on its side to do that so I could get to both sides, but I can't put it on this side because my spring is sticking out now. So I just took this little spring that was on here that makes it shut off, and I just moved it to the top, moved that out of the way, and I'm just going to let it run and unwind. So we'll meet back after the spring is unwound off of both sides. Making sure all the power's off of this spring. And my gong is moving a lot more than it was. It was just barely moving. Here's the end of it now, and it's going up that far forward. I had about that much movement before, so maybe it just needed to get limbered up a little bit. I found the strike side interesting. There's not the two sets of arbors with a bunch of levers on it. It's got one warning pin on the first, second, third, fourth wheel. There's a pin, and on the back of this rack stop lever, it sticks out and catches the pin, and that's your stop system. And then there's this one bracket here that has a tab under this tab. So this goes through right here, and the pin on this wheel hits it to stop and lock the strike. But this dark one right under it, it's just barely right below it, is the warning lever. So when this moves up a little bit, this moves up to let the warning pin by. This one is right below it and catches it, and it's in warning. And that's how they managed their system. I thought it was pretty cool. But anyway, I think this is about ready to take apart. It's not wanting to do much anymore. I just don't trust these springs. They're very thin. I'm going to measure them with the calipers, but they have a ridge down the center of them. I've not had a spring like that before. And that's just to reinforce it, to make it a little bit stronger, because it is so thin. So I saw when I was looking for makers of that, or examples of the steeple clock, in that Trandeli book of old American clocks makers, at one point they got really cheap in their plate design, and there's a movement called a strap movement, and it basically has something like this with the ridge down the middle of it, and it's just like shaped like an A-frame. and it's riveted together, and that was the whole plate. They didn't use poured plates. They used a strap that had a little reinforced bend in the middle of it, and they riveted it together and put holes in it to put the wheels on. So they got really cheap at some points, trying to save money, make a little more money. So this spring I trust pretty well, because it was all kind of bunched up at the edges, and I could wiggle it a little bit and get it to expand out. So I feel good about this one. This one, I don't feel good about this one at all. So I am still working the pressure off of it, trying to get it to expand. I don't like how it's bunched up on itself. It's not flat, it's like this. It looks rusty, it's catching on itself. And until I can get the pressure off of this one all the way, like it had stopped turning, and then I wiggled it around a little bit, it started turning again. So until I get this one opened up like this one, I'm not doing it. I know usually you tighten it up, you put a spring clamp on. I don't trust this little mechanism back here. So I'm going to let the pressure off before I open the plates, instead of combining the pressure into the spring clamp and then trying to get it out of the spring clamp. Everybody's got their personal preference, but for me, with this one, I don't trust it. That's what I'm going to do. So I said I didn't like how this spring was acting, right? And I was able to, now that most of the power was off, I was able to put my my letdown tool on here and get in here with my spring tool and get the click off. The click is basically under this wheel, so you can't really get to it and hold it off of the teeth of the main wheel, but I did eventually get all the power off of it. So you know, it looks good here. This one looks pretty good. A little bit of oil on this one. This one just looks dirty and just rusty and stuff. It doesn't look as good. But when I turn it over, I was right to not trust this spring, because I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 splits in this spring. The spring is starting to crack, and if I had just wound it up and put a spring clamp on it, when I went to unwind it, I would not have known those were there, and it probably would have broken and would have cut the crap out of me. So I'm glad that I let these down to inspect them. So yeah, I may put on the hazmat suit to open these plates, because I'm definitely going to have some leather gloves on, because I don't know what this thing's going to do. I got this spring off of my rack. I took the spring off of the gong on the back side, and this little spring is off of this rack. I've already taken the E-clip off of this. I don't know how it was falling at all. It's so dirty. So this little rack is a 2-piece system, and this little extra piece of wire, I guess, came with it. I thought somebody added a little piece of wire right here in this hole, but it is the end of this one. Like, they started it here in that hole and then brought it around the post. And it was super loose. It was just hooked right here. When I brought it up here and put it in this little hole, then the rack was tight and working like it was supposed to. So we'll do that when we put it back. This has a little E-clip here I've taken off. If it doesn't want to come out, it's so gunked up with old oil. Goodness gracious. So it's really surprising the strike worked at all. The things are glued on there that tightly. Alright, and then I've got one more E-clip right down here, if I can get in there. It's just bending. The other two came off pretty nicely. One of them was bent and I tapped it flat again. It was already bent. You could see it. This one was not bent, but when I tried to pop it off, it bent. But it's off. They're big clips, so that's nice. Got a solid pressure washer on the bottom of that. No pressure washer on the intermediate wheel. It's just got a gear with this big washer and then the E-clip on it. So I'll need to take that off and this off to get the plate apart. And hopefully they'll come off okay. I don't see that this has to come off. If I look underneath, it's not going to do much at all. So I think I'll leave that one. I'll just take off this one. I'll take it off if it comes off somewhat decently. Not wanting to come off. Yep, it may stay on too. Okay. Although it's probably just super dirty because as hard as those were and they had nothing holding them on, and this is pressure fitted on. Alright, let me get some gloves so I can unscrew these screws. So these four were all tight. This one I put on here and it immediately turned. It was barely even threaded on there. That looks like it's attached to the case. It's not going to come off, but seriously, you could finger turn this one. Okay, time to loosen the plate. I'm going to aim this away from me. This is the one that's maybe going to break, so I'm aiming it that way, but I don't want it to bust my computer either, so I'm just going to kind of aim it. Notice how that spring opened up some more. I know this is going to pop some when I open it. Give this a minute to spin. So here we go. Guess I'm ready. Maybe. It doesn't want to loosen. Alright, that one's off. That's just a little spacer that they put on there to force the spring out into the case and take some pressure off of the movement. This is still trying to spin. Alright, let's see what happens when we lift that one up. Alright, the spacers are out. Alright, it popped a little, not bad. Alright. And that does come off after all. Something is still in a bind. This spring is still putting pressure on the case. Sorry, my phone rang. There they are. So this is how you get a 31-day clock. They're super long, thin springs, apparently. Which would be a bear to get back in. You can see the angle of my arbors. they are way bent in. Alright, so that not coming off kind of disturbed things, but not too bad. This got knocked out from that spring popping, but I've got lots of good pictures, so they have a solid metal tab on this thing. I thought maybe it had a slip clutch, but it does not. It's just a bushing that's on there. It doesn't slip at all. But yay, the booby trap is disarmed without injury. That's the most important part. So there's splits all in this spring along the top. It looks like somebody stuck something in there in pride, because it's kind of bent out. And that's what caught my eye, was it wasn't round, but there's a bunch of these places on here. So we need new springs. I'm not going to put these back in here. Alright, I just want to set this back up and take a look at it. Alright, I've set these in place. I put the plate back on just to help me figure out where these went that got displaced. And then I went ahead and checked for any pivot wear. Everything looks okay. I'm not going to have to do any bushings. But I did notice one more E-clip over here. So this little, I can show you this little thing. If it will come off of its post. Grungy. Glad it comes off. So there's two little weights on it, so that it falls up and down like it should, and has the little tab for the this is your warning tab. So it catches on the lift lock lever to lock it when it's done, and then it falls onto this tab when it goes into warning. And this is what's lifted by the center cam here to activate your strike. So it goes like so and gets hit on that, except it's up here because there's my 4th wheel with the pin. So when it's in warning, it'll be like so. And then when that pushes up and falls down, it goes out of the way. Strike can go. Alright, time to clean this nasty thing up. When I measured the spring, it was 0.01 millimeters. Very thin. So this little thing, I think is just pushed on here, a little rubber washer, and I should be able to take it off and just wash that with soap and water and put this in the ultrasound. And that's going to come out. Very odd how they attach the spring there, but anyway, tension washer's on there. This does not come off. It's got some kind of solder or glue. It looks like glue on the back of this thing. And I wanted to measure one more time, because the first measurement was like 0.009 to 0.01 thickness. So let's see what it's doing. .25 millimeters. I got 0.3 one time. Yeah, there's 0.31, 0.29. So 0.27, 0.28, 0.27. Right in there. Pretty thin. But if you measure the whole thing, because of that bump that's in it, you get an erroneous measurement, 0.93. So just the spring itself, 0.27 millimeters, and very long. Like, I gotta move things to even show you how long it is. Very long. Won't even fit in my usual thing I put it in. Here's a quick before and after. Before, after. I gotta go do the other half of the stuff. I did one plate and one's the time side. Now I gotta go do the other plate, the strike side. And I had to do an extra round. I did usually do 10 minutes. I did 20 minutes because it still was pretty greasy looking when it came out after 10 minutes. So, and that spring measurement, I had my caliper set on inches at first. That was that 0.009 to 0.1. That was inches. Millimeters was the 0.27. I got a spring clamp on this. This is the old spring that was not torn up. So I cleaned it, I oiled it, I set it on here. It actually, for as long as it was, lined back up in the holes pretty good. I've had some before that put so much pressure you couldn't really get them in the spot they needed to be in. They were pushing on the other wheels next to it so much. So this one actually went on pretty good. I put the second wheel on and the center arbor on, because that's what contacts the second wheel on this block. Second wheel and then center arbor. So with those two on, there's a nice hole right here through the bottom that I could put my metal through and hold both those wheels tight and let me wind the key up, no problem. But I think I know how the other one got cracked, because I had the very outside ring of this caught right here. The whole thing would screw together just fine, and yet this was pinched underneath here, And as it was tightening, something was hanging up, and I looked and it was caught up on this little stop right here that's supposed to keep it from expanding out next to your second wheel. So I had it halfway wound up, so I let it back out, and it slipped where it was supposed to without me having to open the plates up. But I think that's what it was it was up under this stop on this other one, and somebody didn't notice it and tightened it up real tight, and that's why it got those weird cracks in several places, like 5 different places, because the outside few rows would have had that pressure from that stop and cracked it. So anyway, I believe I have a spring I can use for this. I haven't pulled it out yet and checked it as far as thickness and everything. Width, I don't know, but I think it's going to work. And I just really want to be done with this giant spring. I did put the little black pusher-outer thing back on here to wind it up, because I was afraid if I got the clamp on there I might not be able to have enough length or something to get it, so I put it on there. But this screw was only finger tight, just like the other ones, but it sure got tight with that pressure on it. Alright, turn it away from me. Alright, so this is the 2 wheels I put on. I'm going to take all this back off and get a spring on the other side. So for my strike spring, I'm having to get creative. This was the original spring with the piece on it. This was my replacement spring, and it had something someone had modified with a screw and a nut and drilling a new hole in the end of their loop-in spring. So I didn't trust this, but the spring was good, so I kept it. And I don't trust this with the cracks in it, but the end was good, and it fit over the post here where this one didn't really want to fit over the post. Plus the screw doesn't have the same shear strength as a rivet. So I fought with this with a file for a little bit, and then I got the Dremel out with a grinding stone and ground it off flat so I could take my punch and punch the rivet through, get it off of that spring. So now I'm going to put it on this spring, and I will have a new strike spring. I've just got to tap it back through and then punch the end of it so that it will stay. So let me do that. My little quick fix is taking me a lot longer than I would like. I did get this back in the hole, get this bent back over. I couldn't get this back through this hole. The rivet would not go back through the hole. And there's still a little bit of a lip on there. So that's holding me up from going through the hole. And I thought that the amount that I ground off, I still would have enough to re-tap it over this end when I got it through the hole. Because the other spring has that ridge in the middle, and so this one's flat, so I thought, okay, it's going to give me that little bit of space that I need to go through and tap it down, but it's not going to be long enough, so I need to make a new rivet. So I'm going to grind this off and get rid of this one and use a nail to make a new rivet, because the screw that was in this is not going to have the shear strength of a nail just by design. It can shear in half easier than the nail would be for the rivet. So I'm going to use a nail, and this hole is large because it had a screw, so it's really too big anyway, and it's not in the middle. For some reason he drilled it off to one side a little bit, so when I am over it, you see I got extra spring on this side and overlap in my end piece over here, so I'm going to cut this off, drill a new hole that's smaller, center it, and then rivet it on there. So that's kind of held me up. Like I've not been in the mood to work on this. I have migraines, and I have had migraines most of the days this week, but the snow is supposed to come starting today, so the low pressure is finally equalizing and my head is feeling better, so now I can tackle something like this. Alright, so out to the garage. Let's cut this off. Alright, first let's get rid of this thing. Let's see if it'll tap out of there now, because it sure wouldn't come out before. Alright, that punched out pretty nicely. I used the Dremel to cut the end of this off and round the corners up, smooth it off good. If I used trimmers, a lot of times it gets a little bend in it. It had some bend in it that was keeping my little two pieces apart a little bit, so this is nice and flat with the Dremel cutting it off. Now I just got to find the center and then tap a starter hole and drill. But I'm going to do that off camera. I've got a spring-loaded punch. I put this on here and just put a Sharpie to mark the middle as best I could. And I think I've got it in the middle there. And I've got a spring-loaded punch to punch on here and get a depression started so that my drill bit won't want to wander all over the place. Hopefully it's going to catch right there where I've started a little depression. I've probably punched it 20 times right there, enough that it's poking out a little bit on the back. So let's get the drill bit. Okay, well, this drill bit didn't work. It was the high-speed steel. The second one broke off in the hole, but it managed to get the hole big enough that my nail will go through it. So I think we're there. If I wiggle it, I can get the hole. I can get the nail in the hole. So just got to cut my nail off, and I think we will be all set. Almost got my rivet made. Gotta just take a tiny bit more off. And there's my rivet gonna be. Alright, back in the house where all my tools are. Alright, a lot of hammering later, there we are. I left it a little bit long, so it took a lot of hammering to flatten it down and flare it out as much as I wanted, but it's good and snug now. I could turn it a little bit, but it's tight, so I like it. But don't forget, when you're all done, or before you even put your rivet in there, make sure that your loop is still going to fit on your post, because it would really suck to get it this far and then it doesn't fit on there. Alright, let's oil this up, get it wound up, and get this clock back together. I think I need to clean this thing again. It's been in a bag for a long time. It looks dirty. I don't want a bunch of crud in there, so let me clean this off a little bit, oil it. I'm going to wind it up the same as I wound up the other one. I'm going to put it on this post, put the next couple wheels in, pin it straight, wind it up. So I'll meet you back when this spring is contained. So I've just set these on the posts, put my other pieces in place, and I polished the pivots. They were kind of some pretty rough, especially on these arbors. So I'm ready to just slide these springs into the holes. And I did these first because the springs put pressure and push these over and make it hard to get everything all lined up. So when you are putting this little thing back on that they use to put pressure and pull the spring down that way, and also keep it in place, is what I've discovered, because this spring is a lot smaller than the length of this post. Like American clocks, they're about the same length, right? It fills up the whole space. This post is twice the length of this. So it could slide down to the bottom, it could kind of get the spring in a bind, so this holds it in place. There's a little bump on it right there, and the spring will go right through there and sit on that bump, and it holds it up to the top of the post that way. So put that on, put the bottom of it in the little groove cut out right here. And then, I'll put it on the right side, that would help. Put it on, put it in the little groove cut out down at the bottom, and then lift this up to where the spring is above that little knob. And you can't see that from your angle, but just trust me that it is above the knob. So I'm going to try to bring this in and put it in the arbor. We're going to see how that goes. Doesn't go great because everything wants to move. Like so, maybe. Yeah, this is such a fun movement. Okay. Let's see. Hold that up, hold that there. Twist this in. And squeeze past my second wheel and try to get in the arbor hole. Yay! Okay. But this little black thing, this thing on this side came out of the little square that it's in. And you really can't move it. Like, once you get that in the hole, it's about impossible to move that black thing. Alright, I got it down there. Clicked back in the little cutout at the bottom. It doesn't want to stay down there. Maybe with the plate on and it holding it over more, it will stay where it's supposed to, because it's sure not there right now. Alright. Let's see if the other side wants to go on. It went on a little bit better. It's going to work better. Alright. Now I have to catch these with the plate because they really like to lean. Oh my goodness. One other thing. This is just so going to explode on me. Do not forget to put this little guy back on that we took off once we got the plates apart. The little thing that activates the strike and is your warning pin stop. Put the clip back on that. I cleaned this post real good. I cleaned inside the brass piece real good and polished the post because it really didn't like to slide on it. And so then I've slid it back on, put the E-clip back on the top. Okay, take that out of there. Putting that in the middle. And see, if this would come off, it would make it so much easier, because this is just going to be a pain in the butt to get all down through there. I got to get it down to the bottom. While all of this wants to go every which way. Alright, I'm going to fight this back together. So as you can see, everything's back out. I got frustrated. There was no way to get this wheel back in there from the front plate. Maybe if I turned it upside down, I don't know, but I had enough to mess with without trying to do it upside down. So I took everything out to put this back between the plates to pry this thing off of here, which I popped off. And now I can put it together like normal. Because this one goes beneath the one that's next to it. Like, there's no way to get it all in there. It's just too much. So anyway, you may not have the levers to fight with this style of movement, but you got these massive springs and wheels that don't want to line up. So, round 2. Let's try it again. Let me get all these wheels back in the holes. Alright, it's finally back together. It took quite a wrestling match. And I had 3 screws on and the time side in, and then I got over to the strike side and I didn't have this third wheel through the hole, and it's so tall. I was like, ugh. I stopped last night. This morning I came back and I could separate the plates enough that I didn't have to take these back out of where they were sitting. I just had to redo this side, but I could lift the plate enough to get this tall arbor through right there. So when you're setting this plate on, normally it's this and this you got to worry about, but you got to worry about this third wheel on this movement because it's so tall. So I've put just the lock lever, the lift lock lever on right there, and then start pushing it up and put a little pressure on it. And then let it fall, and that's as far as I know. I'm going to be able to index it. This pin is up against the locking part of this lever, and so I'm going to oil its pivots and put the other parts on the front. There's not much left. I got to put on the snail, the rack, the spring for the rack, which goes under that screw. My lifting cam, which is 3 pins, and that should do it. Oiled everything, and I put the front levers back on. I put a wind on here so I can test this. I don't know that I have my virgin crutch in the right spot yet, because I lifted it up because it wasn't catching right, so I knew I had to redo that, but I just wanted to check the strike. There's a ½ hour. That's 1 o'clock. I had it, when I set it up, I set this to strike right here. Before I put all this back on, I adjusted the snail to where the teeth were meshing with this little intermediate wheel over here, with this right past the 11 o'clock notch in this 12 notch, because this is curved towards the 11 o'clock, so it needs good clearance. So I wanted to make sure that it would do 12 and then come up here and be up on the 1, which it just did. So that's good. And then I went to wind this side, and it's not winding. The arbor's not catching. Obviously it caught when I put it together because it all wound up and let me put a clamp on it. And now that I have wrestled with it and got it in this movement and moved the arbor around, it was enough to make the center hole loose. So now I need to take it all back apart again. And I won't put you through doing all that again. I will just twist that tighter when I get it apart and get us back to this stage again. all is looking good on the test stand. Got the parts all back on the front. Got it adjusted the way I wanted. I had to work on the verge and how deep the pallet's seated into the escape wheel, because it was skipping some when I got it. I knew it wasn't in the right place, so I moved it in the first place. A new one, and I have to adjust it. And the front and the back little holding arms for the pallet pins. Not pallet pins. It's early. I can't talk this morning. The arbor pivots, both sides are adjustable. So if you bring one up, you got to bring the other one up, and vice versa. So I brought it down to where it locked and the wheel couldn't turn at all, and then just backed it off enough to let the wheel turn, and that seemed to let it get in the right balance. And it's been keeping good time. When I got this all wound up, this little black thing was not in the little notch in the bottom of the case right there. It was up and forward, and there wasn't any way to move it. And so I wound it up all the way once I got it together, took the spring clamp off, and then let the click out and unwound it all the way so that I could adjust this little black piece into that little notch, and that seemed to work. It's very hard with these because of the way the springs are to get everything held together, and so you gotta figure out a way to make adjustments. It's striking good, it's keeping good time. I've adjusted the pendulum a little bit. The pendulum is swinging straight. I worked on this the crutch assembly a good bit because it was really bent wonky when I got it. When I had it out of the clock after cleaning, I made sure that this top piece that comes out of the clock was parallel to the arbor right there, because if it's not, if it's bent off one way or the other, up or down, you're trying to correct for a lot of things. So I got that straight. And then a lot of the curve could come out of this. This was really bent before. And then the foot needed some work because it was bent down and crooked. So I made sure that the foot was level so that when the pendulum swings, it's hitting evenly on each side of the foot. So that seems to have done the trick. It's run since about 12:30 or so yesterday, and it's going on 9 o'clock, so that's good. So it's time to work on the case and the face. That face I've got to get soldered back together. Cleaned up the case, got it all back together. The gong needed to be adjusted because it was really flat sounding, and there's no way to do that with the face on it. And then trying to get it in beat once I hung it up was about impossible. I took the face back off, got the gong adjusted, got the bead adjusted, used a little bit of Rodico to hold it straight on the wall because every time you open the door it wants to swing over because the right side's heavier. So trying to get it in beat when the whole thing is doing like this the whole time was a pain. But anyway, I've set the time. I'm going to let it run for a while and put the face back on and call it done. Seems to be running well. It's been hanging up here for a couple days. Keeping good time. It's got a really nice gong sound to it. It's pretty accurate. Everybody's going off about the same time, so I'm happy with it. I think the case came out really nice. Overall, pretty happy with how it came out. You hear everybody going off at the same time. Cuckoo clocks, that cathedral clock, everybody's going off, so pretty accurate. It's turned out pretty good, I feel like. I think I'm going to sell this one. I don't really know where I want to hang it, and I have to really love a clock to keep it, so this one's probably going to go because I don't love it. I like it. It came out good, but it's all serviced and ready to go to a new home. Thanks for watching. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you got.